Welcome back to From Middle Class to Millions. I have a bunch of stuff that I want to talk to you guys about today, and I'm just going to tell you right off the bat, we are going to start off with some headlines with the Real Housewives of Potomac with Wendy and Eddie and their legal woes. I'm going to follow up really quickly to give you some insight into my real estate investment group that I'm working with. This is a new group that I think I've told you about. I want to give you some behind the scenes and allow you guys to follow this from inception so that you get a really good sense of how I'm making these decisions with some real estate ventures in my own personal life. I'm going to follow that up with some talks about some changes in catch-up contributions to 401ks. So if you're approaching 50 or if you're 50 and over and 60 to 63, like there are all these changes that are going on for 2026 with catch-up contributions for your 401k. So this may be of interest to you if you're in that crowd or if you know somebody who's in that crowd and really wants to boost their 401k contributions. And then finally, it's college prep time in my house. Again, this is the last time I'm going to be doing this, hopefully. And so I want to talk to you guys about the entire process, but also how to prepare for college in terms of your money. So you don't need to have a high school senior to listen to this. In fact, you should be listening to this if you have a child, period, at any stage in their education, because the earlier you start, like with most things, the better. All right, so let's get started. I don't want this to be incredibly long. I want to hit all of these points really quickly, and I want you to know that at any point, if there's something that you don't understand, if there's something that you haven't heard about, if there's something that's been, kind of nagging you, thinking about, hey, I should be doing this, I haven't been doing this, I'm thinking about this for my money, this is the opportunity for you to book a sales call with me, get on the phone, let's talk about these things. Because this is a journey. I tell you all the time, money is a journey. And in order for you to ensure that you are doing the things that you want to do so that you can have the fullest life possible, whether it's thinking about your retirement, buying a second home, saving for college, saving for a wedding, traveling, whatever the case may be, whatever is going to make the time that you spend with your loved ones feel more abundant, a lot of the times that's underscored with money, and so you need to look at this stuff, and the sooner that you do, the better. So I will leave a link in the show notes below, and you can definitely book a call with me. Also, I want you to continue to have these open conversations about money with the people in your lives. I think part of the reason why we have such a problem with money and understanding how money works is that we don't talk about it. We talk about our bills. We talk about how we may not have enough money. We don't talk about how to manage our money and our personal finance. We don't talk about how to create more money in our lives. And so I think it's really important that we share these messages, these concerns, these ideas with the folks around us, so that we become more comfortable talking about money, and also creating communities with people who already know what to do. And if you don't know what to do, figuring out how you can be a part of those communities as well. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk to you guys about is this alleged Wendy and Eddie situation with the Real Housewives of Potomac. So apparently Wendy Osefo and Dr. Wendy Osefo and her husband Eddie were arrested and indicted in Maryland and face 16 fraud-related counts tied to an alleged stage 2024 burglary and subsequent insurance claims. So basically what happened was sometime in 2024, Wendy and Eddie went on a trip, I think it was spring break in April, with their kids to Jamaica. And while they were away, their house was broken into, and they said that quite a few items were stolen. I think somewhere upwards of $500,000 in valuables were taken from the home. However, they've now been charged with fraud-related counts, 16 fraud-related counts, because they're saying that a lot of the items that they claim that were stolen have been seen in Wendy's social media. So she's been apparently wearing some of these items that she claimed that were stolen. There were items that they claimed that were stolen that had been returned to the store. I don't know. It's messy and it's ugly, and we don't know exactly what's happened here, but what we do know is a couple of things. First of all, the Real Housewives franchise is like a pipeline to trouble in terms of jail, in terms of accusations, in terms of DUIs. Like, I mean, whether it's Salt Lake, Jersey, New York, Potomac, whichever franchise you name, there's always a little mess in there with these women. And what I find very interesting about this particular situation is, and with all the housewives, it costs a lot of money to be a housewife. And I don't think we all realize that a lot of these housewives, yes, they do have money. Let's not, I'm not saying that these women don't have money, but the upkeep to be a housewife, to be on TV, to have full glam done every day, to have the clothing, to go on the trips, to drive the cars, to carry the bags, that costs a lot of money. It's a tremendous amount of upkeep. And so when they're on TV, and, think about it, some of us wear things more than once in the real world, but these women don't. So during the season of filming, when they are in all of their designer stuff and living their really big lives, I am not 100% sure that all of these women can maintain this lifestyle. And in the beginning, the housewives don't really pay that much, right? So the franchise doesn't pay them very much in the very beginning. So it's not like they were making a lot of money. So these women really had to have quite a bit of money to even maintain the lifestyle of a housewife. So I think there's a lot of inherent pressure there that obviously none of them are really talking about or will talk about, because, you've got to keep up this facade. And these guys are the Joneses, and they're keeping up with each other. So it's really a tremendous amount of pressure. And when I think about Wendy, who, had a segment, I believe, on CNN or MSNBC, and she was a professor, and, she was probably making very good money doing that. And her husband's an attorney. Now, I don't know at all what type of attorney, or if he was in a big law firm, or, the range for attorneys could be anywhere from like $50,000 to $2 million. Who knows, right? So I don't know where he fell in that spectrum. But when you think about it, and you think about the two of them had, their regular jobs, living in a great suburb in Maryland, with 3 kids, I'm sure they were fine. But when they were thrust into this Real Housewives lifestyle, and they had to ratchet up the amount of spending to keep up with this image of a housewife, and then Wendy quit her job and decided she was going to go all in on her business ventures, which, we all know business isn't easy, right? It isn't easy. And every business isn't profitable. And so I'm not sure if the combination of losing what was seemingly a steady, decent paycheck, and then increasing one's expenses, and then losing that paycheck, and then starting these business ventures, which probably required putting some money down to get them going, whether that was tapping into their already existing savings or it was taking out loans. There's a lot of pressure that goes into that. And maybe, just maybe, that fed into what's going on here with these allegations. I don't know. I just know that sometimes when folks get desperate, when it comes to money, their decision making goes out the door, even for the brightest of the brightest, right? And so I guess we're going to have to wait and see what happens with these two, but I think it's really a cautionary tale. And quite honestly, just like any other subset in every community, there are the Joneses and there are folks that are trying to keep up with the Joneses. And a lot of us, if we thought about it and we were honest with ourselves, we'll see that we can all be susceptible to that. And so that this is just on a much, much larger scale. All right, let's move on. I said I was going to tell you guys a little bit about the real estate investment group that I am a part of. So I think I told you guys before that one of my friends, who was actually the best man at my wedding, invited me to join this real estate investment group. And actually it's kind of interesting because the group started in February and here we are in October, and I believe I joined in like end of August or September. And it's fascinating to see what has or has not happened in the time that I've already been there. And I almost can't believe that they are having some of these discussions at the end, at this stage of the game, and they've been in existence since February. So basically, there are 10 people in this group. I'm the only woman. I think that's really important for me to point out because I've never been in a group. Well, at work, when I used to work, yeah, there were always like a lot of men in that in my industry. But this is interesting for me to be in this group, and they're all men, and I'm the only woman, and it's just fascinating to watch, right? I'm surprised because it's crazy how things are being done here. And I know I'm hesitating when I talk about this because I'm in the group's infancy. I feel like I'm at that stage, but they've been moving forward for quite some time and they haven't gotten anywhere. And it's really fascinating because it's just a window into how men do things versus I've been in groups with women and stuff would be moving a lot faster. So this is really interesting. But I'm going to tell you something. I am not going in there, and I was waiting for this to happen, and sure as shit it did. I'm not going in there and allowing them to decide that I'm going to be the one that's going to be their mother, right? I'm not going to be the one to organize this. Instead, it's going to be quite the opposite. I'm taking quite a back seat in terms of observing what's going on. It's messy. Sure, I can see places where it could be more organized. And yes, they even asked me if I would run the meetings, which I promptly declined because no, I'm not taking on the work of the group by myself. And not because I'm like, I don't have any ideas and I don't have things that I want to contribute. And I know that this could move a lot faster if I were to step up. It's because I'm the only woman in the group and I am not going to allow them to give me that role, which would be, you run stuff, you organize stuff like the household, and then we'll come in and, decide what we're going to do. It's not going down like that. I already see that. I knew that that was a possibility. They've already tried to propose that. I shot that all the way down. That's not how it's going to go. So I'm going to keep you guys informed about what's going on. But one of the things that I found really interesting is there isn't a set or clear criteria for who can be in this group. And I've been in other groups like before, and this one, it's a little messy. And I think because there's some friendships in here that have not been business relationships, and I think they're not clear on how to manage that. But I'll give you guys more of a play-by-play. It's just incredibly frustrating what's happening. The vision is great, but the players and the participants are questionable, not because they're, going to do anything untoward. It's because we need to be very clear about who is really able to invest at this stage in the game and understanding the difference between here's your investment pot of money and here's your daily living pot of money, and never the twain shall meet, right? Like they should not be commingled. And I think that's a problem that some people are having. And I think that we need to have some honest conversations about that and Nobody wants to have an honest conversation about that, which is always what I talk about with money. That's why it gets messy, because we're unwilling to have those honest conversations. So that's something that's going to happen within the next week or so at the next meeting. I figure there are about 3 more meetings left in this until, I crash out and say, look, this is what we have to do, or else we're not going to be able to move forward. I know that there are all these sidebar conversations happening, which is never a good sign for a group if they're just being fractured and splintered. But I do believe that you can pull it all back together. Okay, so having said all that, I will keep you abreast, because when this thing, not if, when this thing takes off, I want you to see how these decisions are being made. I want you to see and I want you to hear how we've come together, and we're going to analyze some deals, and I want you to be a part of that. And I've done this, and some of the people in the group have done this independently. We're now just bringing ourselves together with our minds and our pockets, right? So we'll see how that takes off, and I'm going to take you on that journey and on that ride. Okay. Now, this is some breaking news for 401ks, for catch-up changes that I want to talk about in 2026. Like I said, this is important for folks who are approaching 50, or who know somebody who's approaching 50, because when you hit 50 plus, you can use catch-up dollars in your 401k. If you're a little behind, if you're catching up to financial independence, if you're like, hey, I didn't save as much in my younger years, and now I have the ability to put more money aside in my retirement fund, I would love to do that. You can go above and beyond the max limits. However, in 2026, this is going to change. You're still going to be able to contribute some catch-up contributions, but if your FICA wages, right, exceeds $145,000, all of your catch-up dollars must be in Roth. Okay, so there's no upfront deduction. So before, you can't put your catch-up dollars in your pre-tax money. Now it has to automatically go into Roth. And if the plan that you have at work doesn't have a Roth feature to it, then you'll have to have one added. And so what you're going to have to do is really get on top of your HR to see if they're doing that, if they're adding the Roth feature, because if they aren't, then you can't make your catch-up contributions. Okay? And this goes into effect for January 1st, on January 1st, 2026. All right? So if you think back to this year, the standard catch-up is $7,500. So you can put in an additional $7,500 if you're 50 and over, right? And that could go into your pre-tax 401k. So that could give you, it's a tax advantage account in the sense that you can reduce your taxable income right now by putting that extra $7,500 in there. And of course, if you're between 60 to 63, there's a special catch-up, even more, where you can either put the greater of $10,000 or 150% of the standard, which is $11,250. So if you're between 60 and 63, you can put even more money in. But again, that could all go in to your pre-tax 401k. As of January 2026, all of it has to go into a Roth. Okay, so what you need to do right now, all right, is go and check with your HR department and see and confirm that they have a Roth 401k part to their plan. Like if they just have a 401k and it's a traditional 401k, then you need to make sure that they're going to have a Roth segment in their plan for 2026. If not, you really need to push them to do that. Because if you're planning on doing catch-up, you cannot put it in the pre-tax 401k. You have to put it in the Roth. Now, the good news about the Roth is for all of the pros for having a Roth, you can put the money into your Roth portion of the 401k. It is going to be after-tax dollars, so it's going to grow completely tax-free. And when you take it out, then if it's been in there for 5 years or more, when you take it out, you can take all of the growth and the earnings tax free. Okay, so you're not going to have to worry about this being income during retirement. No, it is not going to be counted as income because you can take it out completely tax free. Okay, so it's not going to be taxed at all. So I would recommend, if you are approaching 50, or if you're 50, or if you've already been utilizing this catch-up contribution portion, that you go and you check with your 401k administrator through HR and make sure that they have a Roth. All right? Okay, now let's get into the real meat of today's podcast, today's episode, because it is college application time in my house, and I mean, I think we're on a good path. I want to point out that, you know, all the SATs are done. That was done last, what was it? So yeah, it was done last month. The last one, he decided he was going to try it and do it one more time and take it again. And of course, his scores went up, which is great. And he did really, really well. And I think a lot of that has to do with the college prep course that he took. It was excellent. This is the same company that I used for my eldest, and the owner and the founder of the company, she went to Stanford. I don't even know if she's 25 years old yet, folks. I don't even think she's that old. And she just really has a way of connecting with these guys, with these young kids. She gets it. She gets what's going on. It's not a distant memory to her. And she not only helps them with their SAT scores. I mean, she's fantastic with getting their scores up, but just all the executive management things, the preparing their packages for the colleges and their applications. She's just incredible. She's really fantastic. If anybody's interested in hearing more about it, and her course and the program, by all means, reach out to me. She's just the best, I have to say. So I was really impressed with how he did with his SAT scores, and a lot of that prep came through that course. So I would recommend anybody take it, if you can, and if that's something of interest to you. Now that he's gotten the SAT, he's working with Naviance, which, you know, is for the Common Apps, and he's filling out all the information. He's doing everything that he needs to do. He's going to have to write a few essays. You know, we're just chugging along. Everything's happening. Really and truly waiting for these first quarter grades. Once they go in, they're going to be sent off to the schools, and that's when, you know, we start cooking with fire, with gas, right? Like, that's when it really starts to happen. That's his part. That's the stuff that he has to do. He's got to keep his grades up. He's got to continue to fill out those applications. He's got to write those essays. That's all on him. My part, my role, the role that I have had, not just up until this point, but that I'm going to have once he goes to college, is how are we going to fund this bad boy? Because as most of you already know, and if you don't know and you have kids and you want them to go to college, you need to know college is expensive. A lot of you still have student loans from your own education. So thinking about your child's education makes complete and perfect sense. And how are you going to fund this? I think one of the rules that I say for college and saving for college is rule number 1, save for retirement first. Now, what does that have to do with college? Well, guess what? You can take out a loan for college, whether you want to or not, whether you want your kid to or not. They can take out loans for college. You cannot take out a loan for retirement. And unless you and your kids have figured out that they're going to be your retirement fund, I want you to fund your own retirement. Okay? That is most important. If you are sitting there trying to decide where to put all of your money, and you're like, look, there's got to be some give here, and you don't have anything saved for retirement, you've got to focus on yourself first. You've got to put on your mask first. You've got to put on your life preserver first. You've got to save yourself first. I cannot tell you how many people come to me who decided that they were going to use all of their money to pay for their kids' college, but they didn't tell their kids that they weren't saving for retirement. And now they're telling their kids, hey, you're going to be my retirement fund. That is a hard pill to swallow for kids who didn't know that was going to be the trade-off. All right. So I really want to stress that saving for your own retirement takes precedence over saving for college. The second rule of thumb that I really want you to think about is having these conversations about college early. And when I mean having conversations about college, not just, oh, you're going to go to college, but what type of college you're going to go to, how much you as a parent can afford to supplement, or if you're going to supplement, or are you going to pay for everything, or what makes sense for you and your family. And having these conversations early is paramount, because learning in senior year that, oh, the college that you really love, you would die to go to, is outside of the scope for your parents to pay for is a hard pill to swallow. And I think expectations need to be managed early. And that doesn't mean that your child can't go to the college of their dreams. It's, if we are having these conversations early, let's figure out how we can best make that happen. And by making that happen, I mean, are we looking at scholarships? Are we looking at other opportunities? Are we looking at loans? What are we doing to make this dream a reality? Okay? And not waiting until senior year to say yay or nay to whatever that dream is. Okay? And then the third thing I think that's important is when you're having these early conversations, it's also deciding what your contribution as a parent is going to be, what your financial or fiduciary contribution is going to be. There's no shame in the fact that, hey, you can't pay for all of your child's college tuition. For some folks, $200,000 over the course of 4 years is a financial strain. That is understandable. You may not have all $200,000. Maybe you were able to save $100,000. Fantastic. We still need to talk about where the other $100,000 is going to come from. And if you're starting early and you're thinking about college, and you have taken care of the other things, you've got your retirement dialed in, you are having these conversations based on all of the things that are important to you and your child if they're going to college, then you're also most likely thinking about, okay, how are we going to fund this? And this is where you start to decide, okay, are we going to use a 529? Are we going to use a brokerage account? What are we going to do, and how much are we going to be able to contribute? And these conversations, again, do not start in senior year. These are the types of conversations that you want to have from birth, okay? From birth. And it doesn't mean that you're going to have all the money once the child pops out. It doesn't mean that you're going to have a clear plan, exactly knowing where this child is going to end up, but you are going to be able to start having these conversations, which will allow you to pivot if things change, which will allow you to make modifications. And I think that's really important, that we talk about having these goals early on. And the interesting thing about college, unlike retirement, is the timeline's a lot shorter, right? A lot of people are going to work for 20, 30, 40 years, if not more. But you for college, most kids, it's like, okay, we've got 18 years till you get there, right? It's from birth to 18. At 18, you go off to college, give or take. So we know what we need to do in this time. And now you've got to decide where you're going to put your money. So a lot of people like to use these 529 plans because they're tax advantage college savings plans. You use after-tax dollars to make contributions that grow tax-free. And the withdrawals are tax-free if they're qualified education withdrawals. So obviously you can't take money out of a 529 to do any and everything. They have to be for education purposes. And of course, they have all these rules. And if the money is used for that, great. You've been saving and saving. You can take that money out to pay for tuition and books and supplies and all of those types of things, room and board, the whole nine. Okay? And some states even offer tax deductions and credits on the contributions. Now, one of the fears that people had is, well, what if I overfund my 529, which is a great thing. Like if you have enough money that you put so much money into it and it's grown so much, what if it's too much money now? My kid has come along and there's money left over in there. They did their undergraduate, but there's still money left over. They're not going to grad school. Well, we all know that forever you could have transferred that to another family member. It doesn't necessarily have to be a sibling, but any other family member, you could transfer the 529 to them and they can use it for educational purposes also. But in 2024, this is kind of new. There's a little bit of flexibility for unused 529 funds. Now, it's not huge, but there's a lifetime cap of $35,000 that you can transfer to the beneficiary's Roth IRA. Okay. Now there are a lot of steps in there. I'm not going to go through how you do it and when you do it and how much you can do and how long the 529 has to be open. If we want to get into those details, I can definitely get you that information, but I don't want to bog you down in this. I just want you to know that if you overfund your 529, at least $35,000 of that can go towards that kid's Roth IRA. And as long as they're working, you can get that going for them. So imagine that they even have a start in their Roth IRA. This is the college fund that you didn't use, but guess what? We can now transfer that over to a Roth IRA for you. That started at the beginning of last year in 2024. Again, these rules change all the time. It's something that you have to take into consideration and become abreast of, because that wasn't in existence before. If you didn't use all of your 529, then guess what? If there was money left over and you decided to access it, well, you were going to pay a 10% penalty, and of course it would be counted as income. So, it was like, wah, wah, wah. So this is something that can stave off those fears of overfunding the 529, at least a little bit. Now, there's other options. You can always save money in a taxable brokerage account if you don't want to do a 529, because what if your kid doesn't go to college at all, right? What if none of them go to college? Well, at least if there's the money was in a taxable brokerage account and you thought, okay, I'm going to use this for education, but they didn't use it for education, that's fine, right? Because you have total flexibility with the taxable brokerage account. There's no penalties for taking the money out. There are no tax-free withdrawals. I mean, when you take the money out, you're going to get taxed, but the money can be used for anything. So that is something that some of my clients have decided to do because they're not 100% sure that their kid was going to go to college, but they're like, you know what, it'd be nice to have money put aside for them if they do, but if they don't and they want to start a business, then this is something that I can use to fund that business as well. And that's a great position for you to be in. So there are other options too for folks to do, but know that you're not tied into a 529. There are some other options for you if you're thinking about your kids going to college. Now, if you are thinking about your kids going to college, along with the conversations that I talked about earlier that we need to have early in terms of like, how are we going to fund this? Where are you going to go? What are your grades like? How much of this are we going to fund? We want to have a conversation about what are you going to study, right? What are you going to do when you get there for the 4 years? Because I think it's very important when we're looking at this tremendous investment that could be upwards of $200,000 in today's dollars, right? For a 4-year degree, that your kids are going there to get marketable skills. And they're not going there as an extension of summer camp. Now, listen, if you have the money for them to go and just have a really grand old time, then by all means, you don't have to worry about this. But for those of you who know that, yes, this child may have to pay back some of these loans, and that, hey, you're investing some of your money towards them going here, it would make sense that they're going to get some skills that are actually marketable. And I think that's a part of the conversation that a lot of parents don't have. And mainly because, a lot of people aren't using their degrees, right? And that was okay because their degrees weren't that expensive, right? And so, yeah, they got a little bit of student loans, but they're not the chokehold that I've been seeing recently. And so, yeah, I see a lot of Gen Xers and they may still have, $30K kicking around or something like that. But that's nowhere near what I'm seeing these kids coming out of school with now, with a 150, 200, and they have a bachelor's degree and they can't get a job. Okay? They're not the ones that are coming out with a bachelor's degree in nursing and they start earning money the minute they walk out the door, or accounting, or in cloud computing, or in, you know what I mean? So in engineering, like, they don't have these degrees that are going to enable them to make money. And I think that sometimes we have to look at the return on investment. And if you are going to invest money into getting your education, the least you should do is get a return on that investment by getting a job that will enable you to pay back the loan that you have, right? That's not going to cripple you, which is what a lot of these loans are doing. These kids aren't able to come out of school and get a job that's going to enable them to do something that can pay back these loans if they had one. And even if you don't have a loan, you want to get something that can pay you a living wage, right? So these are the kind of conversations that I think are important for our parents to have when we're going into this investment. It is an investment, okay? It is not just something we're doing for fun. And that's the difference. And with any investment, I always tell you, you've got to get that return on investment. So prioritize what you're going to do. Make sure that you have a short list of marketable core stacks, things that are going to prove that you can go out there and get a job. Now, with AI right here now in our lives, a lot of the college entry-level jobs are being sucked up by AI, like they're doing them. So you're going to need a little bit more than what you had before. And I think it's important to go in to this college experience knowing that. So whether it's healthcare, whether it's finance or accounting, whether it's a skilled trade if you don't go to college. But if you're at college and it's engineering or cybersecurity or computers, like, you need to ensure that whatever it is, you are going to come out of there with marketable stacks, okay? Marketable. I would highly consider you look at schools with co-ops and internships, because that's really important. If you can get some skills, not only theoretical skills, but practical skills while you're in school, great. When you come out, they already know you. That's a potential hire. You want to be able to build your portfolio, right? You want to be able to network. These folks that you're going to meet in college are going to make up part of your network. And your network makes up your net worth. So it's really important to ensure that the folks that you're meeting and staying in contact with and your interests all are piled in together to make a part of your portfolio. And know that the job that you might get at 22 when you graduate is just the foundation to what you're going to be doing at 32, right? And that doesn't mean that you don't pivot and you're going to be in the same job. I'm not saying that you're going to be in the same job for 10 years. What I'm saying is that you have to look at the foundational steps of what you're doing at 22 and think ahead to 32 and think, what am I learning now that I can take with me to the next thing? And the next thing could be completely something entirely different than what you're doing at 22, but the skill sets you're bringing with you throughout the journey. All right? So these really are the core. We can talk about, the rules of the 529 and savings and things like that, but I think the core elements are learning that this is an investment, understanding it's an investment, ensuring that you get the return on your investment, and having these talks about money really, really early. What you're going to pay, what they're going to borrow, you know, what the expectations are that come with that investment, like the GPA and their internships. Because if you're not clear about these dollars today, they become really expensive dollars later. Okay? All right. This was a long one, but I'm glad you stuck around. We covered a lot of stuff. We talked about the headlines, you know, Wendy and Eddie and keeping up with the Joneses. We talked about my real estate investment group. I want you to go and check out your 401k at work. Make sure they have a Roth component. If you are doing the catch-up contributions, you need to have a Roth. We're at the end of the year, and this goes into effect at the beginning of next year. So this is really important. And then again, I want you to have these conversations about college. I want you to have these conversations long before your kids are in college. I want you to start talking about this amongst yourselves as early as possible, because once you have a plan, we can always pivot to accommodate whatever life throws at us. But if we are just flying by the seat of our pants, it usually doesn't work out for us when it comes to money. All right, share this, please, with anyone you know that uses money, and we'll be back next week. Take care. Bye.